Hey, this is Danny here from Podcast Stories. Thanks so much for listening, and I'd love for you to get the latest episodes when they're released. So make sure to follow on your favourite podcast app or hop on over to podcasterstories.com/listen. If you enjoy the show and want to support it, you can do that at podcasterstories.com/support to join other supporters just like you. Thanks so much for being part of the Podcaster Stories community. And now, here's this week's episode.
You see, masturbation in it of itself, it oftentimes it's not really a problem. The problem is that when you rewire your brain to associate sexual pleasure with porn and your hand rather than normal sex, because many people start this habit in teenage years, it becomes so ingrained that it's so difficult to get it out of their head later. So I always encourage parents to have this conversation about masturbation as early as possible.
Hi, and welcome to Podcaster Stories. Each episode we'll have a conversation with podcasters from across the globe and share their story, what motivates them, why they started a show, how they grew the show, and more. We'll also talk about their personal lives and some of the things that have happened that have made them the person they are today. And now here's your host, Danny Brown. Hi, and welcome to Podcaster Stories, where we meet the people behind the voices of the shows we listen to. This week I'm chatting with Roman Mironov, host of the Be version 2.0 of yourself, a show that helps people create amazing and enviable relationships and be a better you. Roman, welcome to the show. We were just chatting earlier about you being in Toronto, so not too far from me. So how about you introduce yourself and your podcast?
Hi, Danny. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and a privilege. And I am a relationship coach and a life coach working from Toronto. In general, I help my clients build a better lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle, a happier lifestyle. And my podcast is also about that. It's, as you said, it's to be version 2.0 of yourself. And it's all about great relationships and being kind to yourself and being really, really the best what you can be.
And I know you mentioned there that you help your clients be a better them, and that comes through, healthy eating, healthy living, etc. And I know you're obviously a big believer in that yourself with your own journey and your own health journey, which we'll obviously talk about as the show goes on. But how did you come up with the idea for the podcast itself? Was it natural progression from your coaching work, or was it added onto that as a value add, or?
I started the podcast in order to market myself, using it as a marketing channel. So I basically started growing as a coach, taking my training, starting working with my clients, and in parallel, I started the podcast. So they sort of complement each other because I use the ideas from my coaching and the examples from my coaching in the podcast, and the ideas that I come up when I record my show, I actually then write them down and use them in my coaching sessions.
All right, because I was going to ask about that, because obviously your podcast started in the summer of 2019, July 2019 was the first episode, and originally it was just you on the show. But recently you've been bringing on more guests to discuss their lives and to discuss their healthy habits. So what's the process of deciding which guests come on and how that sort of eats into or flows over to your business life, so to speak?
Okay, so first of all, I decide on the topic that I want to cover in one of the next episodes. Then I look for a person who is ready to talk about that episode. And especially this is a little bit difficult because actually I want to go into specifics, and I don't want to just chat about general stuff. I want to be very, very, pick up one thing, like being very good in your communication over, different online channels. And I want the conversation to focus on that. And the problem is that actually many guests, they want to focus either on themselves or on something that they're selling or just on general topics. So this makes it challenging a little bit.
And obviously, as you mentioned, you've come up with the topics. Have you ever had to not publish a show because the guest has veered off that much to try swing it back around other promotional stuff, or is it everybody been pretty good to go on that?
Beautiful question, because yes, I had that kind of experience with, with one guest, because I tried to keep her, maybe even two guests. I think the first one was just completely the like she kept going back to her, like, to her product, to her services, and it just did not offer much value. Yeah, that's true. And the second one, I think I tried to keep her on the topic, but she was going to general things about her failed marriage. So it didn't. I wanted to keep talking about a breakup, like going over the breakup specifically. But she was just too all over the place, and I appreciated that. But I mean, I want to deliver value to my audience, and I didn't feel that I could do that with the interview that we recorded. Not I don't want to be, I don't want to come across as disrespectful, but I'm all about value. That's it, and high quality content, rather than just recording 1 or 2 hours of general stuff and that no one wants to listen to.
All right, and I think obviously because of your type of show as well, the value has to be there for your listeners because it's impacting their relationships and their health and their life. So if someone's given the wrong advice or just pushing an agenda, for want of a better word, that fits into their own promotional stuff, it's not going to, it could lead to damaging results for your listeners, I guess.
Well, sometimes maybe people do come as guests with generally positive messages, and they are offering like really good advice. The problem is that it's not really specific enough for my show or for the topic that I want to discuss. That's it. So it's really about just being too general and not
Hmm.
being too specific, not being too practical.
No, obviously now that you've got guests, they'll be bringing a lot of additional information and experiences that you've been sharing as well, from your own life and from your earlier times of the podcast. What's been some of the things that maybe you've learned from your guests that you've taken into your own life and improved in an area or changed something because of something that your guest brought up?
I liked one of my recent episodes with a coach, a communication coach, and she taught me a lot. One of the things that she taught me is to actually be on the video when you communicate with anyone online. If you can't be on the video, do it, because video adds to the communication so much more, because it introduces all those nonverbal communication pieces that we miss when we just talk over voice. However, don't let that thing stop you. Like, don't overcommit to video to the point where you say, okay, I don't have 30 minutes to go on a full video call, so I won't do it at all. No. If you have 5 minutes and you want to do just an audio call, do it. Let's do it. And also, one good piece of advice that she gave was that you actually need to be more expressive with online communication, because we tend to be more robotic, more reserved when we talk online versus offline. So we need to remember about this and really, really put in more effort and just be more expressive. Smile more, make more gestures. Just, yeah.
No, I like that advice as well. I mean, obviously, we're recording with Squadcast at the moment, and one of the reasons I like that is it's got this green room that we're using where it's a video option. We're not using a video, but it'll be an audio show, obviously, but the video option's there. And to your point, just seeing someone's eye reaction, because then you can tell, as you mentioned, we miss that nuance that, oops, I might have said something there that's actually insulted my guest without realizing it. Or you get just a more dynamic, interaction between people, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the right word. Interaction. It triggers. It helps you be more emotional, and then the other person reads this off you and also becomes more emotional, and that just increases the intensity of communication. Makes it more fun.
Now you've had your show's been going for about a year and a half now. So July, yeah, almost a year and a half, I think. Have there been any episodes that have stood out in particular for you? And if so, why that episode or these episodes?
It's my most popular episode about eating one meal a day. Way more people listened to it and watched it on YouTube. I mean, I put it on as a YouTube video. Right now, I think it's like 1,300 people watched it, which is like really insane for, at least for my show.
And I was going to ask you about that because one of the things that you've done is you've had a complete change of lifestyle from your earlier years, where you've changed up your eating habits, your healthy living habits, and you'd mentioned just now that you have one meal a day, which is you follow the keto diet. Is that correct? Do you snack as well, or do you not snack? Is it just a one meal and then you just miss snacks altogether? Because I'd really miss snacks. I'm just curious if it's a stricter regime, if you like.
Absolutely no snacks, only water. That's it, just water.
And what made you decide to take that? Was it a health issue, or did you just look at how you were eating and living that you decided a change, or how did that come about?
Danny, first of all, I look at this as an experiment. So I've been taking this experiment for more than a year. I feel good about it. And maybe I will change my mind. I don't know. I don't know. There are like pros and cons. For me, the best thing is that it lets me compartmentalize my life. So I start with, in the first part of my day, I work. The second part of my day is I exercise. And the third part of my day is rest, where I actually have my meal, this one meal. So it helps me like really be effective, and if not really effective, maybe efficient. See, because I don't want to break my first part of my day, which is work, by meals. For me, this is the biggest benefit. And they also say there are health benefits to it, and I think those benefits are pretty valid. And one of them is that actually you manage your insulin better. Because the fewer times you eat during the day, the less often you release insulin. And insulin is bad for you.
And is it so? Is it so? The one meal that you have, is it like a larger meal to account for the non other meals, if you like, or is it a sort of still a standard sort of size meal?
No, of course it's larger. Because I need to get the calories in, right? Still.
And I know a lot of people. I'm not sure if you've tried it or not. I know a lot of people are doing intermittent fasting. So I guess that's kind of similar to your point, or is it a little bit different?
Exactly, it is intermittent fasting. So my protocol is 22 hours of fasting and about 2 hours of eating. So it's 22 to 2. Whereas a lot of people, they stick to this 16 to 8 protocol.
Right, and that's 16 hours of like awake time, 8 hours downtime when you fast. Oh, I've probably got that wrong. That's a different one, right? 16/8.
16 to 8, yeah. It's just like this. So let's say you start eating at 10 a.m. and you finish eating at 6 p.m., right? That's 8 hours. The eating window is 8 hours. And the remaining window, 16 hours, is when you rest from food.
Now, your podcast, it's about, as you mentioned earlier, helping people on their personal journey, whatever that looks like. And this is the same for your coaching, whether it's their health, their business goals, their eating goals, etc. But your own journey's been quite an up and down one, I guess, over the last few years. You mentioned that you got divorced in 2014, and then you moved, like you made a big move from a country where you were living to Canada 5 years later. So I guess in 2019 you came to Canada. How much of a change was all that, and how much of an impact did that make on your life at the time?
Okay, so I always wanted to live in North America. And so when I had this wonderful chance to come to Canada, I used it. And, my experience here in Toronto, it's different. It's different. So first of all, I like a lot of things. So I used to live in Russia, and Russia is basically a third world country. So here in Toronto, I get all these benefits like a great legal system, safety, secure investments, cleanliness, organization, which we don't usually have in Russia. But at the same time, I feel lonely. And I actually feel nostalgia. I miss my family. I miss my son, especially, who's there back in Russia with my ex-wife. So I always wanted to come to come to a country like Canada or US to live here, but I never realized how lonely it would feel and how difficult it is to do that at 36. And now I'm 38.
Right, and obviously, I mean, the pandemic at the moment can't help either because that really limits our interactions physically with people as well. I mean, obviously, we can make a Zoom call or whatever, but you mentioned earlier about the video interaction that we're having and you have with clients. We need that physical, visual touch. So how has the pandemic been treating you? I guess over the last year.
I've been working from home, which is fine by me, by the way, because this is very efficient. I actually I tried doing in summer. In summer, I worked with a client here in Toronto doing just like walk-in sessions, and it turned out that this is not really helpful in my coaching because I can't really focus on. I just I get distracted by other things, and we can't really do practices like visualization or meditation. So I'm sort of thankful to COVID in this sense, which doesn't mean that I like it. Yeah, and I feel bored a little bit of staying at home, feeling lonely. But compared to my clients, and we talk about this all the time, many of them they feel much worse. So I feel that even though it is lonely to stay at home, I still I'm grateful that it's not that bad for me as for I don't feel that bad as some other people do.
And I'm guessing because of your own journey as well, with the divorce and you coming to Canada and building your life here whilst you're not surrounded by your family, that must be like helpful for the coaching that you do and offering people in similar situations and helping them overcome it. Do you find that you're also learning and getting help for a poor description? Sorry, there's a better word than that, obviously. But when you're working with your clients and they're sharing their story and you're helping them make the changes, do you find that's almost therapeutic for you as you continue to go through your own change?
Absolutely, that's such a good observation, Danny, because I really feel that this pain that I feel from loneliness, and really just any pain, and even pain that I subject myself to, like hypoxia or exposure to cold showers, this helps me connect to my clients, understand them better. Because if like everything was perfect in my life, I would be just in a very different place, and it would be difficult for me to understand them. That's one thing. And another thing that I appreciate about this, let's say, being lonely and those other, ways to inflict pain on myself is that I build psychological resilience. It really helps because down the road, things will not go the way that I want them to go. And let's say, just think about family. The members of your family, they eventually die, right? And when I look at this, even though this time is difficult for me while I'm away, it helps me realize that at some point in my life they will pass away, and I will not be able to be with them just like now. So it just makes me stronger, and of course it makes me appreciate them so much more while they're here.
And I think that's like a real important distinction, as you mentioned. I know a lot of people through the pandemic have said it makes us realize exactly what we've got and what we could lose, because a life could be snuffed out immediately, and you'll never get a chance. You see all these horror stories of people not being allowed their loved ones in to say goodbye at the hospitals, and that's so to your point, I think it's really important to be aware of exactly what could happen and how we can prepare ourselves, for that.
Exactly, and that's actually a very good example that he gave about not being able to see your loved ones. Let's say I have a coaching client here in Toronto, and she has a sister, an older sister, who is sick right now, and is in a very bad shape, really in a very bad shape. And my client cannot see her just because of this lockdown restrictions, and she feels so sorry about that.
Yeah, it's now that I mean, obviously the vaccines are starting to roll out across the globe, and hopefully, you know, some form of normality will come back, whatever that looks like post COVID, because it's as you mentioned, it's having a horrible effect on a lot of people and a lot of ways of life, I guess. Now, one of the things that made me smile when I was like chatting with you pre-show, and we were just going back and forth on email, you'd mentioned that you'd given up masturbation. Now, was that like an off-cuff remark, or you just like being as a fun remark, or have you given up masturbation? And if so, what was the sort of thinking behind that? Is that tied into your lifestyle now, or something different?
Yeah, I mentioned it because this is actually one of my biggest specializations as a coach. So because I went through that experience almost 7 years ago, I I know how to do it, and I can show my clients how to do it. And the reason I gave it up is because it really was holding me back, and I wasted a lot of time and a lot of energy, and I always felt ashamed after I masturbated, especially because I was married. So I kept masturbating through my marriage, and that was really, 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 really shameful for me. I could not, like, yeah, I could get a quick escape from feeling bored by masturbating, but that was just like couple of minutes of feeling good, and then hours of feeling bad about myself. And I was really feeling that I was stealing the time from my ex-wife and my little son. So that was my big reason.
Now, you mentioned that you felt shame because you were married, obviously. So maybe you felt like I have a wife, I don't need to masturbate. Does that did the shame, does that come from like maybe your upbringing, or was that just something that you felt through the action or through the sort of environment you were in at the time?
Yeah, I would say it came from my upbringing, my high standards, my wanting to be consistent with my identity of a person with integrity. So it never really felt right. Really, really never. I always, maybe in my teenage years, it didn't feel right because I didn't like the fact that I was hiding, and then over the years it just got exacerbated because now I had this wife and this son, and I was supposed to be a role model for my son, and I'm masturbating again, hiding. So I guess I was just it was all about my integrity.
And I wonder if that's because we have like our conversation. I've got two young kids, they're 10 and 8, and my wife and I are always trying to balance the conversation as they get older as to okay, what are we going to talk about now? And you can see their changing emotions and maturity, if you like. And one of the things we're always on about, I know when I was growing up, my grandparents and my parents were always very secretive about you shouldn't be doing that. God will look down on you in a bad way if you or whatever. And I'm wondering as people have moved forward or generations have moved forward, and it's people don't have to hide being homosexual, for example, or being so-called different from what's classed as a norm. I wonder as more people don't see something as secretive and encourage it, if it might make it more acceptable. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Mm, yeah, when it comes to masturbation, I think that people are still pretty secretive about it. They don't want to talk about it with their kids. They don't want to talk about it with other people, including coaches. So let's say that's why quite just basically a handful of people they find the strength in themselves to reach out to someone for help about masturbation. And but this is the right thing to do, definitely, because oftentimes it is a problem. Maybe not the masturbation itself. Usually, uh, watching pornography, it can be a problem.
And where that leads to, obviously, there was that big story, I guess, was it last month or maybe December? So one of the biggest ones is Pornhub, and that's based in Canada, of all places. I think it's in Quebec. And they got, like, the government got involved in it. About 70 or 80% of their content got pulled down because it was underage teens. It was, there was very specific categories that, as you mentioned, it's a huge issue from a legal point of view, not mentioning anything else. So yeah, it's definitely I can see like pornography as can be a huge issue with like sex trafficking, etc.
Exactly. It's like just as a father who has a 10 and 8-year-old kids, are they sons?
No,
Are they
the
boys?
10-year-old's a boy, and our daughter's the 8-year-old.
Okay, yeah. So like just think about the boy. Would you want him to, be like staying in his room and watching porn and masturbating and hiding this and then, wasting the time and his potential on this? Would you want him to do that? I guess not, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, at the moment we're good. We're good, and he likes to play video games with myself and my daughter. So we've got this little team thing going on. So that's good. That keeps him occupied.
Beautiful.
But yeah, he's like, so yeah, he's 10. He'll be 11 in May. Well, his teenage years are fast approaching. So maybe it'll be, well, maybe that'll be a new challenge.
Yeah, yeah. I challenge you to have this conversation with him. Sit down with him without shaming. Just really explaining the perils of masturbation and especially porn. You see, masturbation in it of itself, it oftentimes it's not really a problem. The problem is that when you rewire your brain to associate sexual pleasure with porn and your hand rather than normal sex, because many people start this habit in teenage years, it becomes so ingrained that it's so difficult to get it out of their head later. So I always encourage parents to have this conversation about masturbation as early as possible.
No, that's for sure. That'll be like maybe I'll send him to Toronto for a couple of coaching sessions. Send him, I'll get him on the Zoom line with you. Now, we mentioned that your show it launched in July 2019, um, and it's how many episodes are you at now?
About 40,
About
I think.
40.
40.
Yeah. So what's your goals for the future? You've just started introducing more guests to the show alongside your own stuff. What's your goals? Are you changing in format? Maybe doing more video, as you mentioned earlier, or?
At this point, my main goal is to focus on masturbation and porn. So maybe the next 10 to 20 episodes, I want to really, really focus on that because this is like the bulk of my work, and I really want to find a niche in my marketing, like because saying that I'm a relationship coach and just that's too broad for me. I've been trying with this specific topic, porn and masturbation, and it showed me some pretty good results. So I'm happy about those results. I appreciate them, and I think I need to develop more in this area.
Okay. And obviously, you'll be having guests on to like share their experiences. And would you be having say other clients on that you've helped with this, or would you be keeping that separate and their privacy separate? I guess, or
Of course, separate. Of course, my clients they reached out to me, but they are very, very secretive about this habit. And basically, like if I think about all of my clients now, I think there is just one person who told about this to anyone else beside me. So I actually feel very honored when I talk to my clients because I am the only person they let know about their problem.
you've obviously got an interesting background with different experiences with different people, and you meet a lot of different people through your client work and through your podcast. If you had to name one person that would be, say, your all-time inspiration, your all-time hero, who would that be, and why that person?
Mm, I think that there are a lot of people who inspire me, but just the one that comes to mind right now for some reason is Art. Just because I was reading his biography with my son yesterday over WhatsApp. But anyway, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is, first of all, he's such a great influence on me because I grew up on his movies back in the 90s. Even though I was in Russia, they were translated. So he was a role model for me when I started to work out, when I started to build muscle and strength. And since then, he's also become a role model for me in many other areas, including achievement, motivation. Let's say, for example, one of his principles is that to get good at something, you need to do a lot of repetitions. Like you do reps at the gym, the same thing with when it comes to mastery in any other area of your life. I like his policy. I like his strategy about investments. He always said that you need to invest all the time, and you need to, let's say, never buy a house. Your first house, don't buy it to live in it. If you buy a house, buy it as an investment. Yeah, so he was also very frugal. I resonate with that a lot. I live a minimalist lifestyle. I do my best to cut my expenses. So this is another. Let's say he always cooked his own food, and when he did not he didn't had any luxurious things or ways to spend time when he was young. Like what he would do, he would just, but when he came to the United States from Austria, he would just take his girlfriend to the beach and they would just hang out there. Very cheap and very effective.
And good for their health. I mean, the outside, the fresh air, the beach, the sea, everything is perfect, right?
There you go.
I remember watching the documentary back when I was a kid, probably back in the UK when I was maybe 10 or 12. I can't remember what it was called. It was the something iron documentary, where he was
Pumping iron.
pumping iron. That's it. Thank you. So he was going through the readiness for the show, and I think if I recall, Lou Ferrigno was also in the documentary along with some other bodybuilders at the time, and it was interesting to see how they both got into acting afterwards, and they had a sort of similar career path. You know, obviously Lou Ferrigno was the Hulk, Conan from Arnie, and then the Terminator and all that. So it's interesting to see how these like the bodybuilders took into the movie industry right about the same time.
Exactly. And that's another thing I like about Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he actually made this, very difficult shift in his career, right? So he used to be a bodybuilder, he used to be an athlete, and then he became a great actor. Which, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that all people have this potential. They have potential to be great in basically whatever they like to do. But so many people, they just squander that potential. Maybe they just get good at something in their life and they stay there even if it gets stale, and let's say the industry that they're in, like, dies off, but they still stay there. Yeah.
I know, like Schwarzenegger, he was always, which is why he got into politics. It was
You're
always
right.
the big American or the great American dream, right? Immigrant comes into the country and gets to the highest position of the land. Be an amazing story, and obviously he was very vocal when Trump was in power. Like the videos that he shared and the movements he held back, etc. It was interesting to watch him move from his movie star, career into this, serious politician that's really pushing back against what Trump stood for or what that kind of presidency stood for, I guess.
Exactly. So there you go. From bodybuilder to movie actor to governor, and now to this like media person. This is this is the best example of the potential that everyone has, and how we all can actually find motivation. As long as we find motivation, we can actually, get great results.
No, for sure. So Roman, I've really enjoyed chatting with you today. It's been a really interesting talk with very different topics, which is what I love about doing the show, getting to meet people like yourself that can really share a diverse range of, experiences. So I do appreciate you coming on today. Thank you for that.
Well, Danny, thank you for having me. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
No, for sure. Now, so for people that want to connect with you, either follow you online or reach out for coaching sessions, based on the topics that they've heard us discuss today, where's the best way for them to either connect with you, listen to your podcast, etc.?
Yeah, it's my website, romanmironov.com, spelled as RomanMironov. Hit the contact tab, contact me for a free coaching session, and if you do sign up for coaching, and let me know that you came off the Podcaster Stories podcast, I'll be happy to give you a 30% discount.
Oh, wow. I would definitely be sending my son over for a Zoom call at some stage. That's amazing. Thank you, Roman.
Yes. If you sign him, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Let's go. And I'll be sure to drop the links, to Roman's site and his podcast into the show notes. So whatever app you tend to listen to the show on, make sure to drop into the show notes to click these links. So again, Roman, I really appreciate today. Thank you for the chat.
Thank you, Danny. The pleasure was mine.
You've been listening to Podcaster Stories. If you enjoyed this week's show, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And feel free to leave a review on iTunes to help others find the show too. And we'll see you the next time on Podcaster Stories.